Welcome to the Go Podcast live at Depot Store on Main Street. I am Brian Cook, and I'm talking very quickly because,
Ugh.
help.
Send help.
So we have our segments planned out. This first 45 minutes is just going to be Ace and I dry heaving.
On it.
So you
might have started early.
You can start now. So just prepare yourselves for 45 minutes of that. And this is a very professional and excellent podcast. God, I'm talking fast.
Take a breath, man.
All right, I'm going to do that.
Without hyperventilating.
All right, yeah, all right. Okay. So Michigan plays Ohio State, a rural liberal arts college in Indiana, on Saturday. And if you're ever there, check out their Native American Pottery Museum. Anyway, UFR from last week, we're going to take one last look back at the Indiana game before proceeding into the dry heave section of the program. Ace.
I feel like half of this is going to be the dry heave section as well. But
yes, yeah,
there's that.
There you go. 2010 victory, which was uglier than that score suggests, even though that score suggests a pretty ugly win. And John O'Corn struggled. He struggled.
Is that the word for it?
Well, he struggled in all ways one can struggle.
Yeah.
He was not very accurate with his passes.
No.
He made some bad decisions.
Yep.
He continually fled pockets that may or may not have actually been bad or good.
Mm-hmm. He did the Madden drop back.
He did.
Every time.
And maybe
except for the scramble. The one time he didn't do that, he got 30 yards.
So that worked out well. And those are kind of things that we don't think get fixed in a week.
Probably not.
And you're obviously cutting him some slack for the weather, cutting him some slack for the fact that it was his first start at Michigan. But if he has to play a lot, it's not going to be pretty.
No.
So, Michigan's successes on offense often came when they had an ace formation with three wide receivers tight to one side of the line. Two of those are usually tight ends. And so far this season, that has been like a big flashing sign that says,
we're running a sweep over here.
And they didn't do it once in this game. They did run a couple of sweeps, one of which was successful. The second was utterly buried, but that was from an I formation where it's not quite as obvious what you're doing. So Michigan comes out. They assume that Indiana has been like super prepped for this, and then they just kind of run up the middle. And the thing about Indiana's response to the sweep-looking formation is that it had 6 guys in the box.
And that's not very many.
No, it's really weird. Like they literally did not have a free hitter in the box if you count Ty Wheatley as an inline blocker, which he was effectively able to be.
Yes.
So you saw a lot of power plays that just broke along, and then Michigan just went inside zone, and the first Devion Smith touchdown came from that formation. Got great blocks from Bredesen, Cole, and Darbo, but that's only 3 guys.
Yeah.
For a touchdown.
No, as soon as Darbo got on the safety, it was over.
Yeah, and that poor safety.
He had himself a rough afternoon.
So the guy that Darbo blows back like 4 or 5 yards on that play is also the same guy
Who was murderated.
was
by
murderated
Devion Smith.
by Devion Smith, and also
Came back to the living just to get killed again.
and then he got run over on the second touchdown. So it was not a good day for that guy, whose name we will keep anonymous for the same reason, like you see blue dots in court proceedings. He doesn't deserve this.
It's best to leave that out.
He's we're going to let him slide. But I thought Michigan had a pretty good tactical approach to their run game. And you have to remember that going into this game, Indiana was a top 20 rushing defense in S&P Plus.
Yeah, no, they've done
which
well
is
this year.
boggling.
Quite.
But they got good play from a couple of their interior linemen. I thought Kalis had a rough day. I thought Bredesen had a rough day. I thought Cole did really well. But they were getting push in the backfield. This wasn't like your father's, your older brothers. Pretty much every one of your relatives'
Indiana
defenses.
No.
So I thought that to get the kind of yardage they got, and if you take out, there was a team rush, and then O'Korn stuff wasn't really relevant. And then, like the last 4 carries, which are in a blizzard, and Michigan doesn't care.
Where they're just killing clock.
Yeah,
and running the ball on 4th and long, because whatever.
So if you take those out, Michigan averages 5.5 yards a carry in this game. And with O'Korn completely incapable of completing a pass against a good rush defense, when you're not really getting superior blocking from a lot of people, that goes back to the tactical approach.
And that's kind of something they're going to need this Saturday, is scheming around the potential deficiencies of the passing game and the fact that you're not working with an overwhelming talent advantage up front and still finding a way to get the running backs creases.
Yeah,
and they did that quite successfully.
That's something that they did a really good job of last year. So last year, they had some severe talent deficits in the trenches battle, especially with Joey Bosa going up against guys who aren't Joey Bosa.
Yes.
And Michigan came out of that game looking pretty good in my rock, paper, scissors metric. They were +6. And that's a number that always has to be taken in context. In the context of that game, that's really impressive.
Yes.
So, obviously, if O'Korn is playing, Michigan is either doing something tricky as part of a plan to lessen the burden of Wilton Spade as much as they can, or they're going to die.
Oh yeah, it's not ideal.
And there wasn't really a whole lot else that leapt out at me as something that we hadn't seen before. I mean, Devion Smith had a good game, but the way he got his yards were very Devion Smith-like.
They sure were.
One thing that I did think was clarifying was Chris Evans. So we had seen a couple of runs from earlier in the year where Chris Evans had a really short area juke, which was really effective. And he did that twice in this game. So there's a tag on the blog that's Chris Evans creates ankle slurry.
Mm-hmm.
And he did that twice, so there was a safety who was coming up on him really hard. And he had a juke that was reminiscent of something I saw him do in like a Twitter clip when he was a recruit. It was the exact same juke.
The one where he gets a screen pass and jukes between 5 people? And
no, this was like a camp setting.
Oh, okay. Oh, yes. I know the clip you're talking about.
So he did that in a real live game and broke that guy's ankles and went for 10 yards. And he did that a second time. That's the good part. The bad part is that he missed a huge opportunity.
That cut out would have been nice.
That was another one of these runs from the trips bunch formation.
Yeah.
And Michigan spread it out, and they successfully put Evans in a situation where there are gaps to both sides of a guy, and he needs to read which side of the blockers the downfield defenders are on, and he does not do this.
No.
And he gets nailed for 0 yards on a play that probably could have, should have been a touchdown. So, obviously a lot of natural ability, still developing as an interior runner on the college level.
Yeah, I'm kind of expecting Smith to get the vast majority of the carries this weekend, kind of like he did in this. I mean, they will like those guys as a changeup, and there are plays that those guys can run that are better suited to them than Smith.
Yeah, I mean, this is more of a conversation for later in the show,
Yes.
but I do think Evans has a role on Saturday. More about Evans' future as a back. I think he's a running back long term.
Oh, absolutely.
I think you might see him get more into the Curtis Samuel hybrid stuff next year, just because he's got so much to learn as a freshman this year.
Yeah, I mean, they've kind of toyed with that, putting him in the slot thing, but they
Yeah.
haven't really done anything with that so far, and he has the capability to do that.
Yes, but he's obviously proven himself to be at least adequate. I wish he had a little bit more tackle breaking power, but you'll probably see him add 10, 15 pounds as his career goes on, and that'll improve. But pretty good player.
Yeah, absolutely.
On the other side of the ball, Taco Charlton and Ryan Glasgow both had monster games. And this is something that we haven't really seen from Ryan Glasgow in a while. And it's not really Ryan Glasgow's fault. It's just that the opposition has been avoiding him as much as possible. And when you run a lot of outside zone, as long as the edge is being set, you don't have the option to ignore the nose tackle. And he went off.
Yes.
So he had 3 tackles for loss, including a sack. His grading at both Pro Football Focus and on MGoBlog was off the charts. And it was really good to see that because now we know that going into the Ohio State game, Michigan has a fully armed and operational Ryan Glasgow.
Something they did not have last year.
Emphatically
and it showed.
so. Yeah. But, I think he's terribly underrated nationally because, Michigan has to spread out a bunch of stats, but he's a top player. Probably going to be a third-round draft pick who starts immediately in the NFL, and everybody's like, where did this guy come from?
And we will know.
Yeah. Meanwhile, Taco Charlton, this is his 3rd straight week where he was just rampant.
Yes.
And the kind of things he was doing to the left tackle and the right tackle, like he wasn't just forcing the ball back. He was forcing the ball back, throwing the right tackle into a heap, and then tackling.
No, I think when the NFL scouts start going over the film from the second half of his season, he's going to start getting first-round draft pick hype.
Yeah, his stock's already blowing up a little bit, and if he can replicate that against Ohio State, and there's a pretty good chance he will be able to because they have a problem at right tackle. He's a guy who could single-handedly keep Michigan in the game, and it looks like he's fully healthy. It looks like he's really finally hitting his stride. He's finally becoming that kind of man beast that you thought and hoped he could be coming out of high school.
Yes, we had visions of this when he was a recruit, but it was a kind of a, if everything comes together, he can be this, and he is becoming what we had hoped. Hopefully on Saturday he won't need a personal foul before he starts really going off.
Yeah,
it did make him. It successfully made him mad.
If that's what it takes.
It's worth the 15 yards if he gets it over with early.
Yeah, especially if he can bait someone else into it too.
Yeah, if they're offsetting, fantastic.
What did I write down here? Oh, catches whatever. Except I didn't even put the H in.
Yeah, that's not. If you say so.
No. What I was saying is a lot of the yardage that Indiana picked up were.
I was just saying whatever you wrote is not catches, but.
Oh, it is. Yeah, it is. I know it doesn't look like it. But I had to. I remembered what I wrote down. Anyway. This is a very visual podcast.
It sure is.
Talking about my handwriting. So I thought probably half of Indiana's passing yards were just kind of shit happens events.
Yeah,
right?
that Leitner stuff.
Yeah, like the wheel route that goes underneath Diamante Thomas, the pass that Stribling rakes out or does not rake out, depending on your perspective.
I think only a couple people had the wrong perspective on that.
And then there were
important people.
There were a couple of Mitchell Page catches that were actually just really good execution.
The toe tap on the sideline was impressive.
There was a toe tap on the sideline, and then there was another one where Legau put it in a position where Thomas couldn't get to it when he got to almost everything that was catchable. So, I thought that defensive performance, while not a shutout, while a 10-point game.
That was a sometimes you get got kind of performance for them, I
feel
like.
And this was the best passing offense Michigan has gone up against this year.
Yeah, and when Legau's not throwing interceptions, and he's controlled that more recently, Indiana is downright explosive.
So
Michigan kept them from being that.
Yeah, I thought that this performance was about on par with expectations, maybe a little bit disappointing that they weren't absolutely rampant, but they were close to it. And that's good enough for me. I didn't really think that this was a defense that should be giving up an average of 0.9 points to an average D1 offense.
Yeah,
and now
they have been a little much.
Now they're up to 6, and yeah, that feels right.
Yes.
And so
an average offense will eke out a touchdown.
And one of the things that I was most interested in as far as the Ohio State game goes is how Diamante Thomas and Delano Hill matched up with Indiana's slot receiver. His name is Mitchell Page. He's 5'7". He's a white dude. He's not Curtis Samuel, but he is an effective player and a fairly good analog.
Yeah, he's been pretty productive the last couple of years.
And Thomas and Hill did a great job on him. There was a Thomas play where I gave him a +2 despite not getting a pass breakup because he made literally every catchable ball a pass breakup. The ball was slightly not catchable. And then Hill got a couple of completions, but as we mentioned, I didn't think that his coverage had anything to do with those completions.
Yeah.
So Michigan is going to have these guys on Curtis Samuel on standard downs. Like on a passing down, they're going to, it sounds
you
like
can slide Jordan Lewis inside.
But these guys are really the key to like allowing Michigan to tee off on the run game and contain Samuel by themselves. I think they can do it. They've been very good in coverage all year, and the Indiana game was no exception.
Yeah, and I mean, what you're looking for from those guys a lot of the times is on these short routes, just make sure that you're in position to tackle immediately on the catch, and they were doing that against Indiana on the rare occasions that they were giving up completions.
Yeah, I mean, there have been a ton of those little crossing routes this year that we've seen Thomas break up, that we've seen Hill break up. So tackle on the catch is very good, especially because a lot of these routes are like 3 yards. But to go one farther than that and be able to actually break them up is something that is a really positive thing for the safeties. And I think we're going to see Michigan continue that. I think they're going to get got a little bit by Samuel because Samuel's a notch up.
He's a Heisman-level player when utilized correctly.
But I think that they're going to have some trouble just being able to, like, pre-snap decide they're going to go to Samuel, and that's where they go.
Yes.
If that happens, I think Michigan's going to get some pass breakups. I think they're going to get some sacks when Barrett comes off of it. So it's not a great matchup for Michigan, but I don't think it's a disadvantage like you might think, just because like nobody really hypes up Delano Hill and DeMonte Thomas.
No, but if there's a team that's equipped to slow that guy down, I mean, I don't think you can name another team that Ohio State's faced this year that has a secondary with the kind of hybrid level players that Michigan has, who at least have the potential to slow down Samuel.
Yeah, so that's pretty much all I got out of the Indiana game that wasn't blindingly obvious.
Yeah,
I mean, some of what I just said was blindingly obvious.
You know, the quarterback situation made it kind of tough to draw too much out of that.
Kind of tough. Do we have Steve Lorenz yet? No, we don't. Okay, we got an expansive, very visual response from Morris, our sound guy. So we are going to take a commercial break. Is that what we're going to do? Yes, we're going to take a commercial break. We're going to come back and talk with Steve Lorenz at 24/7.
No man is more important than the team. No coach is more important than the team. The team, the team, the team. You and I know. It's going to be Michigan again. Michigan.
Underground Printing and Mo Sports Shops are proud to present a new retail experience, the Bow Store, exclusively licensed Bo Schembechler brand merchandise.
Throws downfield to Carter. Carter
Hi, this is Seth from MGoBlog. So we bought our home through a local bank. Family friend was the banker, but the underwriter was it was a nightmare. So when we went to refinance, I talked to Matt. It was so different. He shops the loan to different underwriters, so we were a priority for them. And he knows what they needed from us ahead of time, so we didn't have to keep digging through our old paperwork. He's incredibly ethical. He knows the system. He knows where they take advantage. And he keeps a small shop, and he does all the work himself, so he keeps all the costs down. Anyway, that's why I highly recommend Matt. He's licensed in Michigan, Ohio, and Florida. You can give him a call at 734-531-9950. Visit his new office in Ann Arbor on State Street, or go to homesurelending.com/MGoBlog, and he'll take care of you. That's Homesure Lending, NMLS number 1161358.
Everyone has their own definition of true wealth, and it's our job to help them understand what the definition is for them. We look at everything from college to retirement and lifestyle planning, as far as estate planning and building their own legacy, helping them understand what their goals are, and then backing in from there.
Peak Wealth Management founder Nick Hopwood has been a part of the MGoBlog community from almost the very beginning. If you've put in the work to reach that point in your career, it's probably time to talk to him about your financial future. Stop by his office in Plymouth or visit peakwm.com/MGoBlog. Hey Ace, have you ever been in a car accident?
I have not.
You have to have been in a car accident for the purposes of this ad.
I apologize for not being in a car accident.
No, you say you've been in a car accident.
I've been in a car accident.
Now, what happened to your insurance rates?
They were skyrocketed through the roof.
Thank you. This is a professional podcast.
This is a very professional podcast.
Well, if you are in a car accident and your rates have skyrocketed, the state of Michigan actually allows you to avoid this by taking a defensive driver's class. And Defensive Drivers Group will provide that to you at a low cost. At defensivedriversgroup.com, take their online course, complete it as 99% of their applicants do, and get the states of Michigan, California, and New Jersey to wipe your record clean. There are no hidden fees, and the founders, who are both Michigan grads, will give you $5 off for mentioning this ad. Just say MGoBlog.
If you need a place to stay in Ann Arbor and don't want to be stuck out by I-94, there's a new hotel downtown, and the owners, who should be well known to the Michigan community, have asked our help to get the word out. The Martin family, yes, that Martin family, recently opened the Residence Inn Ann Arbor downtown, just a block from Main Street and a short walk to Michigan Stadium. They're competitively priced and offer a free hot breakfast, free Wi-Fi, fully equipped kitchen in every suite, and an indoor pool. That's the Residence Inn Ann Arbor downtown.
Welcome back to the MGO podcast, live at the Bow Store with some unfortunate chatter in front of the noble talent. Oh, we just shut them down.
That wasn't even like a subtle hint or anything. That was well.
Why be subtle?
Fair. It was very effective.
Speaking of why be subtle, Michigan recruiting.
Hey, there we go.
There we go.
Solid segue.
That was a solid segue. Steve Lorenz of 24/7 is now on the line. How you doing, Steve?
How's it going, guys?
Wow. You sound beautiful. Anyway.
Coming through clear.
Take it away, Ace.
We still have plenty to cover from last weekend. It took me until today to get around to this stuff because of this week. But I think we should probably start with the biggest name visitor from last weekend, which is Isaiah Wilson. He seems to be a little quiet about his leaderboard and how it's shaking up, but I think the general perception at this point is it's down to probably Michigan and Alabama. Is that your sense, Steve?
Yeah, I think so. And you know, a lot of people keep asking me why, Wilson's not a guy I haven't put a crystal ball in on yet. For me, I'm just being really cautious with Michigan's offensive line board in 17. There's so many names out there still, so many possibilities. And when you add in the fact that Alabama kind of is the other school out there with Wilson, I think I want to be a little bit more patient. If he was committing today, I'm almost certain it'd probably be Michigan. But, Alabama can close on these guys probably better than, anybody else, them in Ohio State usually. So, but the visit went really well. Obviously, I don't think there was any hiccups or anything like that, which really for a guy that they're in good position with right now is about all you can ask for. I know, Michigan really needs tackles. I think we all know that. So I think that's a big sticking point for him. There's potential playing time to be had. I mean, I don't know if there's a guy who's going to walk in and play, but there's always that possibility. He's a very high ceiling player, a guy that Drevno and Ty Wheatley have really been after now for well over a year. So kind of just a sort of a continuation of that. The visit went really well, and it's one of those things where really you just want to avoid, the hiccups and stuff. So, I think Georgia might be sniffing around still a little bit there. I wouldn't say they're up there at Alabama level, but, I think Michigan, Alabama, and then to a lesser extent, I think Georgia's still involved as well.
And then the other main uncommitted official visitors were all guys that Michigan are looking to flip from commitments to other schools. The kind of late emerging name and one that's gotten a lot of play this week is Elijah Hicks. His high school coach had said he was 100% committed to Notre Dame. To your colleague Tom Loy heading into his trip in Ann Arbor, that does not seem to be the vibe heading out of his visit. What kind of chances do you place on Michigan possibly flipping Hicks, and how much is that related to the feeling that Darnay Holmes may be likely to stay in California?
Sure. So, with Hicks, I think I want to say it was a couple months ago they offered, I think, 3 guys. They offered Hicks, they offered Matt Hankins, who's still verbally committed to Iowa, and then they offered Brandon Sebastian, Tariq Black's teammate out of Connecticut, committed to Boston College. With the goal of getting all 3 of those guys on campus eventually. Hankins backed out. He's going to sign with the Hawkeyes. And so Hicks, I think is higher on the board than Sebastian is. So I think, there was a concerted effort to get him up to campus even after, he verbally committed to Notre Dame. I know that his coach mentioned the 100% thing. That's why you never speak in absolutes when it comes to recruiting, because anything can happen. But, even on top of that, you're visiting Michigan in November against Indiana. I mean, it's, there's definitely got to be some interest there if you're taking that visit. And, I don't know if I thought Michigan would make a huge move like it sounds like we believe they did. He's definitely thinking. I know that there's been some back and forth both with the Michigan staff and I believe the Notre Dame staff. Steve Wilfong, our national guy, did a good job reporting on that the other night. That I think Notre Dame's in a mode right now. They really need cornerbacks in this class, and I think they're in mode where they're really trying to hold on to him, big time, just because they need him so badly. But then you see, the sanctions come out this week for Notre Dame. They lost again. They're probably going to lose to USC this weekend, looking at a 4-8 season. I mean, I always kind of like with George Costanza, like they don't have hand right now, and that's kind of the way, like they have no standing really. I mean,
it's a tough sell for Notre Dame over Michigan right now.
Right, and so Michigan's in a great position when it comes to that situation. So and Michigan needs cornerbacks too. That's the thing. They got 2 great ones last year, but I think right now, like you mentioned with Darnay Holmes, a guy that I never put a crystal ball in on just because the buzz has always kind of been more that his family kind of wanted to keep him on the West Coast. Despite UCLA's struggles, I do believe that's where he's probably going to end up signing. So I think a Hicks, Ambry Thomas, Benjamin St. Juste trio at cornerback would be a great scenario for Michigan. I saw what you guys posted on the recruiting roundup that Greg Biggins at Scout is really big on Hicks. I think Hicks is an excellent player too. I kind of think he's personally a 4-star level player, and he's had a really, really, really great senior season as well. So, not a guy that I would be, overlooking if they're able to complete the flip. I think he'd be an excellent pickup for them at cornerback.
Yeah, Notre Dame doesn't tend to target middling 3-stars out of California unless they're really bringing something.
Well, they're about to.
Moving on from Brian's shade at Notre Dame, another committed prospect Michigan was hosting, Rucker Rietmeyer, the defensive tackle who is committed to Brady Hoke at Oregon for now. His dad had kind of done some recon mission, scouting out Michigan's campus early, and now Rucker was on campus last weekend. His father told your colleague Steve Wilfong that the visit went very well. And it seems like it's heading in the direction of a Michigan flip, but I know that Ohio State also put in an offer to him last week. Is that something that may change the direction of his recruitment, even at this kind of late stage in the process?
Ohio State, I'm interested. Jay Tufele is on Ohio State's campus right now. My guess, again, I don't know Ohio State's board from top to bottom, but I do know they're getting very low on spots. Tufele is a guy they really like at defensive tackle. Their pursuit of Rietmeyer may depend on maybe how that visit goes. Michigan, in my opinion, not necessarily in that position right now. I think they can take him whenever. And, again, Oregon's just like Notre Dame right now. I mean, it's really hard to pitch anything there. And I think the situation with Rietmeyer has sort of been, some of these kids don't want to come off as flakes, so they sometimes maybe stick with commitments that, I don't know, aren't necessarily optimal just for the sake of not wanting to look like you're a flip-flopper or anything like that. I think he's a good fit at Michigan. Michigan liked him in evaluations early. His name was kind of bandied about throughout the summer, early fall, and then kind of the offer came through. And I think we've talked about him a couple times before where Michigan and Oregon were the 2 offers he wanted. So another guy, probably actually along with Wilson, another guy I'm probably contemplating the crystal ball for right now, just because I think, Oregon, who'd they beat last week? Utah, or they upset somebody. Didn't really help. Yeah, it didn't really help Helfrich's job prospects, it sounds like. So, still would be expecting a change there in some capacity, which, when that happens, all bets are off with anybody that's committed. So, Michigan obviously in the spot right now, stability, winning, need bodies in the defensive line too. So, again, another guy I feel like they're definitely trending upwards with. It's just a matter of, when, and I think the thing at Oregon's got to play out still a little bit further.
And along those lines of players committed to coaches who will probably not be there for much longer, LSU fullback commit Torrey Carter, who is teammates at Lee County with both Aubrey Solomon and 2018 commit Otis Reese, kind of made a long-awaited official last weekend. And it sounds like it's hard not to see Michigan in the driver's seat here, especially considering he told the Wolverines' Brandon Brown that he plans to return for an unofficial visit during Michigan's huge visit weekend in December. Is the sense you're getting that Carter is kind of a sooner or later thing? Or, I mean, it seems like it's inevitable that he's going to wind up in the class if Michigan wants him.
I agree. Again, another very likely crystal ball prediction, probably nearer rather than later with him. For him, it was simple. I mean, Michigan's used to the fullback. They can turn on film and show him, this is what, you'll be able to do for us. And they haven't recruited a true only fullback under Harbaugh. So this is a guy that, if he puts in the work, could play right away. And obviously, too, there's no doubt, it puts another feather in their cap with the chances with Aubrey Solomon. I mean, is it ever going to be stuff like that ever going to be the factor for a guy like Solomon? No, but it definitely can't hurt your chances. And with Reese being solid, I think Michigan's in a spot where they feel like maybe they could, build some future, inroads. And I don't want to go as far as saying a pipeline in East Georgia is kind of far-fetched for a school like Michigan. But, they'd automatically be in the conversation with a lot of guys, much like maybe they are at like Flanagan or, down in South Florida or, I don't know, maybe Gilman, I guess, but they don't really have anybody from Gilman outside of Poggi right now. But you know what I mean, though, as far as a school where they might always be in the conversation going forward, and they produce a lot of talent. So, there's a lot of reasons why Carter's a good fit, for Michigan. And again, I mean, there's probably about 7 or 8 guys that I think are like borderline crystal ball worthy guys. It's just the way that this staff recruits, things can change so quickly. I think I've gotten to the point I'm a little more cautious before I throw it in there and put my name on it. So
yeah, we've run into trouble a couple times putting picks in with guys that the room runs out every once in a while.
We use the ball
we're learning.
Differently. No, we're
learning.
Like we are good at
we're more speculative.
Yeah, we're good at like figuring out the thing first, but we're not as accurate as Steve, which is fine.
It's fine.
It's fine.
You guys are fine. I've just grown overly cautious with it now. Like even within this own cycle, like I guess a good example I'd probably say right now is like throwing in a crystal ball on Shannon Reed so quickly. Like there's still a chance there, but with Michigan now, really after Willie Gay, it's like that's but then that's like you say that it gets to a point where there's only a certain amount of spots and. Again, and this, like I said, especially with the offensive line, is just such a cluster. I mean, they're like 8 or 9 guys still, even with Jedrick Wills off the board. There are a bunch of guys that could end up in this class, and so it's just I've tried to take a little bit more of a cautious approach to it than I used to, but either way, end up with a great class no matter what.
This seems like the right time to transition to a discussion of the receivers and Oliver Martin and Tariq Black. And how many of them are going to fit in the class, because both you and Sam Webb kind of hinting that Martin's timeline may kind of squeeze him out of a spot, especially since Brad Hawkins is very much a member of this class. So how many receivers is Michigan taking, and who do you see ending up in those spots?
I get, Sam, as always, Sam does an amazing job, so obviously, he knows what he's talking about. It sounds like it's probably from who we've talked to it's been a little back and forth between Tariq Black and Oliver Martin. Obviously, Nico Collins and Donovan Peoples-Jones are guys that are Michigan takes no matter what. So those guys will have a spot as long as they want in. I don't see them taking 5. They took 3 last year, and then you add Hawkins back in this year. Like you said, he definitely has a spot. I don't see them taking 5. It's just a matter of do they want another outside guy or an inside guy. I know you and I, Ace, talked about it. I like Oliver Martin's game a lot. I also know that he's a guy that Harbaugh is personally really big on. So I don't know if that'll end up being a factor or not. I know it has been in the past with certain recruits that, obviously Harbaugh Uber Alice and anything, and if he wants a guy bad enough, he'll maybe find a way. But I still don't see them taking 5, and it will come down to Black or Martin. Right now, it does sound like it'd probably be leaning more towards them taking Tariq Black. They're in great position with both, so I think they're in a position where really they might end up just getting to choose, which direction they'll go. Can't go wrong with either guy, though. I mean, they both are very good players. I know we're really high on Martin at 24/7. I think he's still a top 100 guy for us after the opening. So, but again, you put Peoples-Jones, Collins, Black, Martin, and then Hawkins. I mean, their haul at receiver should be maybe the best in the country.
Getting 4 out of those 5 would be pretty nice.
Absolutely. They all have a little bit of difference to them. I know Black and maybe Collins are somewhat similar. Peoples-Jones is just an athlete from a different planet. And even Hawkins, though, I'd say this. The fact that Hawkins is in, I think it says a lot about maybe that he's developed really well both on and off the field. I mean, you guys know that Michigan and JUCO is like a rarely, if ever. I mean, was Austin Panther still the last JUCO player that Michigan? Am I right? Or
he's in prep school, so that's a little bit different. Like Marcus Slocum came out of prep school. Like
it's still usually when a guy doesn't qualify initially, you expect that to be the end of it.
Yeah, it has happened occasionally that Michigan has stuck with a guy. Not to much production, but
Marquise, he didn't quite make it.
No.
Well, we've talked about Michigan trying to flip other teams' commits. That does go both ways. So we've got Jamarick Woods, who's coming off an official visit to Mississippi State, where he was hosted by his former high school teammate Errol Thompson. And then there's also Benjamin St. Just, who is taking an official visit to Virginia Tech this weekend. Steve, what are you hearing in terms of is there any flip potential here, or is this more sightseeing for these guys?
I'm pretty confident especially with Benjamin. I'm be shocked if he signed elsewhere. I think this is more, Michigan was really his only offer. Virginia Tech's just kind of been continuing to put the effort in for a long time, and I think he wants to just go see another school. I'd be very surprised if anything happened there. With Jamarick, it's interesting because actually probably not about half hour before that we got on here, one of the Arkansas reporters, not for our site, but a different Arkansas reporter, actually sent me a message saying that their staff thinks that they have a real shot to flip him. I have not been given any inkling that Michigan feels like that there's any concern there, and I have not been given any inkling that they would be okay letting him walk. So, from my standpoint, I'd be very surprised if anything happened there. But it was interesting to hear that, especially when you consider, I think both of our Mississippi State insiders at 24/7 put in crystal balls for them. So it's weird. It's one of those situations where there might be a couple staffs that feel like something's going to happen. But I think I posted on him the other day or yesterday, basically saying that it could be a situation to watch, but it's not one that I personally am really concerned about from Michigan's standpoint. He's been solid for so long. He's very, very tight with Jalen Kelly-Powell, too, who finally verbally committed, a couple weeks ago. So, everything's kind of there for him, and he's a good fit in Don Brown's defense. It wouldn't make much sense to me. Especially the other thing, too, to consider with him, he was down to, I think, Michigan and Duke. He's an academics guy. Like, he again, a lot of guys say academics, whatever, it doesn't really play out that way sometimes, but I mean, he was pretty serious about it, at least during his recruitment before he verbaled. So kind of weird to, go to like Mississippi State, I guess. I don't know. I know it's closer to home, but, I don't anticipate anything on either front personally.
And the last one before we let you go, you mentioned in your Thanksgiving post yesterday that optimism is rising with Ambry Thomas. What's the latest on him, and what's kind of driven that vibe?
Well, I don't think it helps that, Michigan State's only Big Ten win is over Rutgers. I don't really think that's helping their case very much. I mean, it's one of those things where, it's like, okay, they're struggling this year, whatever, but it does get to a point, though, when the losses start adding up that it's going to get in the back of kids' heads. So, Michigan's approach with Thomas has been pretty consistent. It's pretty much been the way we were told it would play out. Michigan felt really good earlier in the spring, heading into the summer during camp season. I think they anticipated that Michigan State was going to make a massive, massive push. Obviously, you guys know Detroit King. I think both of Michigan State's recruiting coordinators are graduates at King, and they've done really well there with Keontae Stallworth and Tariq Thompson and Donnie Corley, among others, I believe. So, you knew that there was going to be a really hard push there. I think Michigan kind of has played it patient, and now that he's an early enrollee, and now that it's getting down to the nitty-gritty, I guess, or around the time where he's going to have to make a verbal here sometime in the next month or so, I would assume they're really making a really, really strong push and making a convincing case, too. So, it's really like my crystal ball has stayed on Michigan. I've been pretty consistent in saying that I thought Michigan State was a real factor, which I'm sure they still are, but I think nothing has changed my mind on Thomas at all. Everything we keep hearing on him is positive. So, which again, if they can sign Peoples-Jones and Thomas, that's the top 7 in the state in the composite, which is great. Not just because they're getting in-state kids, but the 17 class is one of the better in-state, groups or cycles. 17 is one of the better cycles in Michigan in quite a while. I mean, they're getting a lot of really good players. So, and that doesn't even count Darren Irving Bay out of Flint, who's still somewhere in the mix. He's among the defensive linemen, obviously, that they're still trying to recruit. So we'll see what happens there too. But you get like Josh Ross and Corey Malone Hatcher and Peoples-Jones and the Thomas, like I said, and that's excellent because you're getting to the point you're not just taking them from Michigan State, you're taking them from Ohio State too. Ohio State's done pretty well in Michigan the last few cycles themselves. So, you guys remember when the Pipeline 9 started, to get those guys on board would be a big coup for them in this cycle.
Yeah, I mean, we've both seen plenty of these 2017 kids, and it's an impressive group of players in the state. And to clean up like they look like they're going to, like you said, it's not just beating out Michigan State for those guys. It's beating out some national players, too.
Can I ask one thing?
Fire away.
Sure.
Najee Harris, I got to do it.
Pretty status quo. I mean, he said his official for December 10th. He is in Tuscaloosa this weekend for the Iron Bowl. So I don't know if it's a situation where they're going to push him to – I don't feel like he's the type of kid that would like being,
pushed to affirm his commitment.
Yeah, like they're not. I don't know if he's not the type of kid I think that is going to appreciate being pushed for an answer, because I know Michigan has been super, super patient and extra careful in their recruitment of him. When he didn't want any coaches talking to him or anything like that, there was no contact there. And I keep going back to those San Francisco Chronicle articles, especially, and Tosh Lupoy negatively recruiting Michigan. He just does not strike me as a kid that would resonate with whatsoever at all. No progress as far as me putting a crystal ball in yet, because I at least want to see how this visit goes to Alabama, if not maybe wait it out further. But again, it's going to be either Michigan or Alabama, and remains pretty considerable optimism on Michigan's side.
All right, you have a deal going until the end of New Year, right?
Yeah, we're still free till January 1st, and like I said last week, December should be a really big month for Michigan. A lot of potential early enrollees making verbal commitments, and if they can pull it out tomorrow, could be a massive month, not just on the recruiting trail but on the field too. So we're free till January 1st, and same as always, give us a try. We're doing good work.
All right, awesome to talk to you, Steve. We will talk to you in the near future.
Sounds good, guys. Enjoy the game tomorrow.
We'll try.
Yeah.
We'd like to welcome in Greg Dooley right now. Greg Dooley, of course, of MVictors.com fame. How you doing, Greg?
Gentlemen, this is my first time in the Bow store, and this place is sweet.
Yeah, I can't believe you weren't here for, opening night. Didn't they invite you? You're a big shot.
Where is he?
Where did he left? He took off.
I'll check my spam folder. It must have got lost, but it's nice to see you guys. Ace, how you feeling, buddy?
I'm doing well.
Doing well. Your voice
Yeah.
is a little sexier.
I'm coming out the other side of a cold right now.
Good. That's good.
Yeah, my wife got a cold, and I was like, you need to always have this. Because she sounded exactly like Scarlett Johansson. It was awesome. But anyway, that was too much information. How you doing, Greg?
I'm great. I'm nervous. I don't get super excited about these games. I get anxious, and I've just seen way too much in my Michigan fandom, and I just get nervous. So I get quiet, and I get nervous.
Our top 5 later may be coping mechanisms for the nervousness. So.
Yeah, this is definitely just like I want to fall asleep and wake up at 11:59 on the dot, but that's not going to happen. While we are killing some time, we want to talk to you about the history of the Michigan State rivalry, because you are...
Which rivalry?
Oops. The Ohio State-Michigan rivalry.
I figured.
Because you, of course, are the foremost... Would you call yourself the foremost Michigan historian in the world today?
That's tough, but... You know,
I'm
one of them. I'm one of the people they call. If they can't find Bacon and a couple other people, then they call me. So it's not bad. Actually, it gets you out there a little bit. So yeah, but no, I can talk about that a little bit over a couple minutes. I can kind of do a brief, USA Today version of the history if you guys like.
Set the stage.
So we of course start playing football before most people do in the Midwest, right? Michigan does. Ohio State has a football team. It's very much a little brotherish relationship. They're trying to be a respected football team. We joined the Big Ten in 1896. We have a fierce rivalry with Chicago during that time, which lasts about a decade. Fielding Yost arrives. Okay. We have awesome success, obviously, point-a-minute national championships. Buckeyes, again, nipping at our heels, really pointing to Michigan as their measuring stick for what kind of program they want to be. We leave the Big Ten in 1908, Western Conference at the time. Ohio State joins the Big Ten while we're out of the conference. We rejoin a decade after we left, become the 10th team, which later forms the Big Ten. They beat us a year after we rejoined the rivalry in the late teens. They have a star tailback named Chick Harley. All the Buckeye fans know who this guy is. He really gets their program going. They beat Michigan. They beat Yost. It really inspires them to build their stadium, Ohio Stadium, in 1922. We play in their dedication game. We beat them, I believe 19-0. The rotunda in Ohio Stadium today is painted with maize and blue flowers as a tribute to Michigan based on that win in that first game. So we go through time. They're still not our main rival. They're a rival. They're on our list, but not really. Minnesota, Chicago still a little bit. Newt Rockne and Notre Dame, even though we're not playing them, there's really bad blood. And Michigan State's coming on. So we come through the 30s. We have national championships, dominate Ohio State. Then a guy named Francis Schmidt arrives in 1934. Naturally, it's the worst season in Michigan football history. That's when this guy says, we can beat Michigan. They put their pants on one leg at a time. He starts this gold pants tradition that you see today. All the players get this little gold pants pendant. That starts in 34. Of course, they beat us. They beat us for 4 straight years. Fritz Chrysler arrives. The rivalry starts to heat up. We start to beat them. Tom Harmon comes through. Fast forward through the Fritz Chrysler's great years. 1950, we had the Snow Bowl where we beat them in the snow. We don't get a first down, but we beat them 9-3 in 2 feet of snow. Their coach is fired. Woody Hayes arrives the next year. Then the Woody era starts. He builds that program. Fast forward, Bo arrives. You guys know the history from there. That's really the history. It was not until really I feel that Bo arrived that the Ohio State game was the was the main game on the schedule. Before then, in the 50s and 60s, it was Michigan State with Biggie Munn and with Duffy Doherty. And I feel like that's where really the rivalry shifted, and it hasn't let up that much. I think some would argue that the state rivalry has gotten very close, if not surpassing it for some in the last couple of years. I think some would argue that. I wouldn't.
Yeah, Michigan State fans, but
it's true. But when you get to this rivalry, it's very personal. I'm sitting across from a guy who has family in Ohio. When you have family in Ohio, it's different. When you have family that goes to Michigan State, and your wife or this and that, and your brothers, it's a little different. It depends on who you work with. All those things, I think, blend into how important that rivalry is. But I think if across the spectrum, Ohio State's been our main rivalry, no doubt, since Bo arrived in '69.
How long has it been the last game on the schedule?
Since, I believe, the late 30s is when it flipped. It used to be Minnesota for a while, and then it was a bunch of other teams before that.
Isn't that kind of indicative of, like, a higher status than other teams?
It is, but I would say it was significant. But when you had Michigan State pushing everybody around in the 50s and 60s, and they're right up the road, it's kind of tough to not say that's the team we got to beat. Okay, and we had success against Ohio State, so It's tough.
I mean, to me, like the Ohio State thing really starts with Woody.
Yeah.
Because Woody was crazy. I don't know if you know this, but he was completely bonkers. Like the whole like pushing the bus 50 miles so he doesn't have to go to a gas station. That might be a slight exaggeration. But like,
did you know he punched a guy?
Yeah, man,
no doubt. But
I'm not going to get on Woody Hayes for punching the guy on the sideline.
Now,
like that's like the heat of the moment. Like the thing that made Woody Hayes crazy was the fact that like he was literally the warden in the Shawshank Redemption, not literally, figuratively.
Way to go, Archer.
Yeah, high five. Yeah, there we go. Very visual podcast. But like to me, it just like the all-encompassing mania of the Ohio State program starts with Woody Hayes, and that's like to this day where they're like crossing out M's on campus and singing their dumb song about how we have a whole song about how we don't care about Michigan.
Right.
Like to me, like Woody is the whole locus of this whole thing.
You could say that. I've talked to too many guys that are still around from the early '60s, which you would say, well, who was it? And I've asked them, and they say it was, the team that really was the big one was still Michigan State because they were so good. And I'm sure if you ask some other players, it might be different. But that's what I've always based that on. But yeah, you could say it was Woody because without Woody, there's no Bo, there's no 10-year war, and that, without question, is what brought it from a 7 to a 10 on the on the scale of the hatred. The other point about the Michigan history is Ohio State, 1902, I believe it's 1902, we beat them 85-0 or something like that. A guy a student at the time wrote Carmen, Ohio, their alma mater, on the train ride back from Ann Arbor. So says lore. So they have a lot of ties to Michigan.
Well, I think that's what kind of makes it a little bit different than the Michigan State rivalry. Like if Michigan State were to suddenly evaporate from the face of the earth, I'd be okay with that. I'd be like, they weren't really all that interesting. But if Michigan and Ohio State define themselves against each other.
Yep.
And it sucks that Michigan has basically opted out of being competitive in the rivalry for the past decade or so. But it's one of those things like the Iron Bowl or the Apple Cup where like these two teams have to meet at the end of the year or it's not college football.
I'm with you. Yeah, it's been really tough though to just say it's all about that Ohio State game and it's so big when State was kicking our butt. And
it's kind of like a necessary first step to being able to beat Ohio State.
Yeah, we're kind of seeing that progression now, again, where Michigan is coming back and now surpassing Michigan State, and now we can focus on the game at the end of the year again as the be-all, end-all.
Yeah, and, I mean, Michigan State is a bigger rivalry across all sports. Like, the Michigan State game is the biggest hockey game. The Michigan State game is the biggest basketball game. But in terms of, a single, all-encompassing one-sport rivalry
event,
I don't think it has any competition. And it's mostly because Ohio State fans are completely bonkers. Like they're I don't know, man.
Are you going down there tomorrow?
No, I'm not.
You've been down there.
I've been down there many times.
And your experience was what?
I could tell the Cape story. So I go down there, and because I'm an idiot and currently in school, I wear a Michigan flag as a cape. And I have two other buddies who have done this as well. And my buddies are, one of them is an electrical engineer who dated the same girl for like 7 years because they were just, too boring to like go out and find other people. And he's happily married now, so don't worry about that. But he's not like out there like barking at people, right? He's just there. And my other buddy is currently a doctor, and he has cerebral palsy, so he literally walks on crutches. And I'm walking into the game at the forefront. I got my tough face on. I'm like, ugh. I'm just like, ugh. I know what these guys are going behind. They're just going, hey, how you doing, everybody? And I feel like there's some sort of disturbance in the force behind me. I turn around. My electrical engineering buddy is in a bush, and there's an Ohio State fan pushing his face into the bush. And my cerebral palsy buddy is on his back like an upturned beetle, waving his crutches in the air, and I'm just like, what is this place? Like, these are like the nicest people in the state, and somehow they've been picked off by this marauding drunk Buckeye guy. And I mean, to their credit, a couple of Ohio State fans came up and like they broke it up, and they were like, that shouldn't have happened. We're real sorry about that. And that is kind of the dichotomy of the Ohio State fan base. It's like that top 20%. they respect you. They'll talk Bo and Woody with you. They understand
The Ramseys of the Ohio State
yeah.
fan base.
And then like the you've got like kind of a 20% underneath that who are just kind of typical douchers, and then the bottom. The bottom.
Do you feel like though that top 20% will acknowledge that there is that other part of their fan base that are super brutal?
I think so.
Yeah,
because I feel like I talk to reasonable people a lot, and they give me the old, well, you got them in every fan base, don't you? And
to
like,
some
well,
extent, yeah. But I mean,
but
one of the
you
reasons
clearly don't. There's nothing like this. And speaking of Michigan State, they got a taste of this because they were been in these big games, and if you talk to, and I have, they got a taste of how brutal
they had
these
no
fans
idea.
are.
No,
they had no clue, and they hit them right in the face in these big games they've had with them.
Well, you kind of go back to the home and home they had with Texas, and the Texas fans come up and they're all excited and they're just like it looks like a Hieronymus Bosch painting to them, and they're just horrified by the whole thing. And I remember that was like 2004 or something. I think 2 years later is Football Armageddon, and I'm down there, and that was probably the most respectful experience I've had down there. One, Bo dies the day before, changes the whole game. But also, everything you hear from everybody around the stadium, like all the official stuff, is like, please be respectful and polite. And I think that Texas thing was a really wake-up call for them. And I actually, Football Armageddon, I got a single ticket for $450 that was in the student section.
Oh.
But no, I mean, nothing happened to me. Like students are people with hope and futures, right? Like
they have things to throw away.
Yeah, they're real like bad apples in any fan base, and this goes for Michigans too. Are just people who are Michigan fans, and they're just kind of like not having a great go of it,
Yeah.
So, I hope that wasn't too recklessly stereotyping.
I do feel like you mentioned the 2006 game, and I do feel like for me that the build-up was more intense than this was, and maybe it's because we have all these channels and everything today and everything. But I felt like '97 was bigger, and I felt like 2006 was even more intense, like going into that game. And then the Bo thing happened, but I felt even before all that,
Well, 1 versus 2, like there's the shadow over this game is the existence of Alabama. So like when Michigan Ohio State played in 2006, like these are the two best teams in the country. There is no question about that. Never mind Florida. But like here, you've just got this like Death Star that's just waiting whoever wins this game, and it kind of does put a damper on it. But
you've also got this like unclear playoff. I mean, the Football Armageddon was to play in the national title game.
It's true.
And this is kind of a murkier playoff picture where a team could possibly miss the conference championship game and still get. I mean, there's some weird stuff going on here.
I don't know if Washington's going to finish this game off against Washington State. Like,
that's true. That could be moot by the time this podcast is listened to by most of the people who listen to it.
I heard you say to somebody that you could see the switcheroo going if Penn State wins. And I don't know if you still feel that way, but I feel that. I feel like if Washington, wins out, that and Penn State, let's just say things don't work out, Penn State wins I don't know how the committee sits there and looks at that team and goes, and that doesn't take Penn State.
And
over Ohio State, if you're comparing the two teams, I don't understand how they do that. I don't necessarily agree with it. If you're talking about the best team, I think Ohio State's better. All those reasons, but
I do agree with that if they do take Penn State, because the thing the committee has to prioritize above all other things is making the games matter. So if you have a Penn State that won the Big Ten fair and square and beat Ohio State, you cannot take them over a team that didn't play in a conference championship game. Like the only time I think you can put an Ohio State that doesn't play in a conference championship game in the playoff is if you don't have 4 respectable champions.
Fair.
And you're probably going to see Clemson. If Clemson loses, then that opens the door.
Yeah.
You're probably going to see Alabama. You're definitely going to see Alabama. And if Washington finishes off, if they beat Colorado in the title game, then I think Washington's in. And then you're looking at Penn State versus Ohio State, and you cannot take a team that beat Ohio State.
No one feels that way, it seems.
I would be shocked if Penn State wins the Big Ten and Ohio State doesn't get in. The really interesting thing to me is if Wisconsin wins the Big Ten and Ohio State is sitting there with 1 loss and they beat Wisconsin.
That's different. Yeah.
I think then you give them that spot.
Then I think you do.
that's different. I don't know. It'll be crazy. Hopefully, I feel like for this game, everyone's leading. I do feel like there's a strong sense that everything's fine. Ohio State's going to win. Then we're going to have this weird thing, and I didn't feel good about the Iowa game. I feel good in the karma sense that this is a game where we're not as bad as we looked against Iowa. We know that. We didn't look great against Indiana. Harbaugh's holding back some stuff, and we've got seniors. We've got more experienced players where we've got a shot here. If this game's close, I feel pretty good about our chances.
Well, I mean, they got to get some quarterback play. That's pretty much what
Yeah, what's the deal, Scoop? What do we got for us?
Oh, man. Wow.
How's that chicken wing, man? What's going on?
Oh, man. That's the most brutally I've ever been. I just got served on my own podcast.
You did.
What's the word?
I have no words. But I'm going to say the things that I have read on I've scoured every message board. I've deciphered what I can decipher from the various insiders, and it does sound like Spade has practiced. It does sound like he will play. The injury is to his non-throwing shoulder, so it's a pain tolerance thing, and it's whether whatever they're going to do to that shoulder is going to throw off his mechanics. And then you're worried about what happens if he gets blown up? Can he stay in the game? I expect that we're going to see John O'Korn on purpose. I expect that John O'Korn is going to have some sort of package, and he's going to get a drive or two just because they're going to try to prevent the Rudock thing from happening in this game. And then I think you're going to see some peppers, and that is not a report. That is my wild-ass guess. Thank you for the most vicious burn I've ever received on this podcast.
You're burnt.
You're like a teenager over there. Goops. The one time I've been doing this for 11 years now.
One time it backfires.
This is why
you scoops forever.
Yeah. Guess I'm just Ace Williams. Ace and Ace, the podcast, that's where the place is.
I don't like being reminded of that dude's existence.
Well, he never actually existed.
He didn't.
He was a fictional person.
Oh, the kid, right?
Yep.
Yeah, the kid who just made stuff up.
That's right.
They're still doing that, by the way.
Are they?
Oh, yeah.
Fake news?
Yeah,
I've
but
heard
they
about
just
that.
don't. Yeah, it's a thing. I guess they invented it. Maybe it's Macedonian. I don't know. Do we have any more Ohio State stuff, or are we just talking about
I don't know. I mean,
stuff nobody cares about?
Hey, man, people care about this stuff. No, I don't have anything else. I'm excited for tomorrow. I'm nervous. I get quiet. Again, I think these rivalries are personal.
Yeah.
I think this isn't awesome. I love all the attention that this stuff gets. Not that we ever don't get attention, but I love the national feel of this game is back.
Yep.
There has been a history where you've had great coach kind of restore order, then some fogginess in the legacy of that coach. Great coach restores order, fogginess and gloominess, and then it's restored. And this kind of follows that pattern. Carr's a little different, but still he had success, and then it kind of waned. And then we had, I still kind of view that as Bo era-ish.
Yeah. Well, Ohio State skipped the bad bit because there's that kind
They
of
condensed it into 1 year of Luke Fickell.
Yeah. There's always that kind of natural kind of drop off that you're seeing, maybe with Mark D'Antonio now, you saw with Les Miles.
Mm-hmm.
There's that kind of, we're not so good, but we can't get rid of this guy yet. And they managed to skip all of that because they just had the guy had to get fired because of the NCAA violations, and then Urban Meyer just kind of sitting there.
It worked out nicely for
Worked
them.
out okay for Ohio State.
Jerks.
Precisely. And on that note, I think we should hit another commercial break.
Did you know the black and white striped referee uniform seen on the field today was created at Moe's? In the early days of football, officials wore white dress shirts, bow ties, and beret-type hats. But when an Arizona quarterback confused Ypsilanti's Lloyd Olds for a player and mistakenly passed him the ball, he asked his friend George J. Moe to make a distinctive shirt to set him apart. The new striped uniform was effective, but hated by fans. Olds was met with plenty of boos from the crowd when he first wore it in 1921, and more when he called targeting. Moe's Sports Shop is celebrating 100 years of outfitting the Michigan faithful. Visit us at our original 1915 location at 711 North University or online at mosportshops.com.
It's painless. It's online. It's group ordering made easy for your next custom printed apparel order. Pogo from Underground Printing takes the aggravation out of custom printing for a group. Whether you're selling shirts for a fundraiser, organizing a large event, or trying to collect sizes and payment for a family reunion, Underground Printing is here to help. Save time and hassle every step of the way with our easy-to-use site. No more guessing what to order, chasing people down to pay, or wasting time trying to sort out who needs what. We'll set it up and you can just sit back and relax. We can even take care of individual shipping. To learn more about Pogo, visit us at any of our convenient locations or at pogo.undergroundshirts.com.
In southeastern Michigan, the yearly cost for a nursing home averages $90,000. It doesn't have to, though. Reed McCarthy founded Ann Arbor Elder Law after handling a tricky situation for his own family. Years of experience later, his boutique firm works with clients across southeast Michigan, dealing with Medicaid planning, long-term care, and tax, disability, and family law, not to mention family dynamics. If you have a family member who may need that level of care, or if you're ready to start your own estate plan, Reed can give you a plan for the future. Visit AnnArborElderLaw.com or call 734-945-9693. That's 734-945-9693.
The places you'll go may seem far from Ann Arbor. From San Francisco to St. Louis to Shanghai. But as members of the Alumni Association, we're never far. Because Michigan is more than a place. It's a mindset that connects us. For those who leave Michigan, but for whom Michigan never leaves, this is where you belong. The Alumni Association of the University of Michigan. Join today at umalumni.com.
Ace, I wish to speak to you now of Andrew.
But Brian, we podcast in silence.
You are right. But each day, Andrew Deo Gracias used to go to his corporate consulting job, where each day he felt the darkness.
Andrew is a good worker. He would be a better worker if you let him work in silence.
But each day he felt the blackness. Each day he shoveled numbers to feed the furnace. Each day he worked as hard as he can. But he could stand the silence no more. It occurred to him one day that his work could not stop the darkness, nor the blackness, the black hand that massages as I speak. So he started his own bookkeeping company.
That does not sound like working.
Now he serves small and mid-sized consulting firms and nonprofits across the country, providing bookkeeping and accounting services. He finds others, usually fellow Wolverines, who left the darkness but need a little help.
Andrew De Gracias is a seasoned Big Four strategy consultant. He should work for the blackness.
But Ace, he'd rather work for guys like us, keeping us from missing filing deadlines and handling onerous tasks like editing and formatting our forms and finalizing documents, research, or analysis. If we did consulting work, he could help us with those deliverables, which you don't usually get from a bookkeeper.
But Brian, we do our work in silence.
No. He is an independent freelancer, so he'll do the work himself. And Andrew's offering a deal to Michigan alumni, 1 free month. Just mention the promotion code each day we work when contacting him. Find us at deobookkeeping.com and schedule a free consultation today. That's deobookkeeping.
Keep it.
That's deobookkeeping.com.
Best ad read ever.
Welcome back to the MGO Podcast, live at the Bow Store on Main Street. We have a gimmicky top 5 for you, and that is the top 5 ways we are killing time before this frickin' game, because this week has been brutally long, and is still, I think there's like 6 more days before the game.
Yeah, that's
approximately.
Right. Yep.
Oh God,
years maybe.
It's been brutal. Ace, you're number 5.
Looking at the clock and calculating how long I have until I wake up.
Okay.
Which is a thing this week because we are departing for Columbus at 5:30 tomorrow morning.
So at least that's not long. I mean, it's a early
yeah,
thing.
Although it's still crawling, but
still crawling.
Yeah, but under 11 hours now until I have to be awake.
I wrote down game day, 5 hours thereof. Ha ha ha! Just kidding.
Nice.
I can't.
You can't take that show for that long.
Well, it's not that game day is a problem. I mean, game day, I'll put it on the background and it's completely fine. But like every time I see a preview hype thing on ESPN, which is about every 30 seconds.
Yes, for this game.
I'm just like, ugh.
Yeah.
Like they're like showing like people fighting and all this stuff, and I'm like, yeah, that was cool when it happened, and it'll be cool in about 24 hours. But I don't
until
even.
then, there's a feeling in the pit of our stomachs.
I don't want to see a winged helmet. I don't want to see a Buckeye sticker. I just don't even want to like contemplate the upcoming event, which is a problem because of my job.
Yes, there's a bit of a crossover there.
Right? Yeah, but so like, this is a brutal week for me to get stuff done because it's Thanksgiving. But this year especially, it's just brutal because I sit down at a keyboard and I'm just like, I don't want to do it. I don't want to do it. I don't want to think about this. I just want to be terrified in the 3.5 hours that I have to be terrified in, and then like serenity now.
There are certain drawbacks to combining your passion with your work.
Yeah.
This may be one of them.
Well, it's been a good run.
It's generally good.
H number 4.
Stress eating Thanksgiving leftovers. That was a good portion of today.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, the leftovers are gone, so I'm going to have to go to.
They're all gone?
But I mean, you know.
How do you do that?
Well, I have a brother.
Oh, okay.
That I live with.
But the whole point of the Thanksgiving leftovers is that they last like an absurdly long amount of time.
You know, we went through a lot of food yesterday and went through a lot of food today.
Like I literally could not eat all of the leftover stuffing that my mom gave me. If you had me,
we also
just
did a
eat
smaller
that.
Thanksgiving than normal this year. It was just the nuclear family and my brother's girlfriend, so there wasn't the quantity of food that is often made for our Thanksgivings. So this year there was. We also did chicken instead of turkey this year. It's a smaller bird. It tastes better.
Ugh. All right,
I'm fully on board with that.
All right, whatever. My number 4 is thinking about last names. So I did the hyphenated last name thing, and I was thinking about this. You're going to enjoy this.
Oh boy!
So my last name is Cook.
Yes.
Often, when last names became a thing, your profession was your last name, and so I think that my ancestors probably were chefs of some variety. Seth Fisher, probably a fisherman.
Could you guess mine? Because I actually know that.
I've actually thought about this. We also have Adam Schnepp, and I looked up Schnepp, and Schnepp is the act of turning gypsum into a commercially useful substance.
Well, I did not know that.
I just made that up on the spot, actually.
I'm impressed.
And I was thinking about your last name, and I know what your family used to do, and it's kind of like it's a different language, so you have to like change it into.
It got Ellis Island in
right,
there.
yeah. So your ancestors used to bend ham, and
that's pretty close. That's pretty no.
Not the ace ham.
Anbender most likely comes from Einbinder, which is bookbinder.
Ugh, lame.
Yeah.
I just wanted to see like your Vikings like bending hams.
I mean, ham bending would have been pretty cool.
Except
last ham benders. It would have worked, but no, bookbinding, less exciting, but less ham related.
Yes, but now my number 4 is also like thinking about The Last Hambender, the movie, like writing the script.
Yeah, let's get that going.
Like that's
second career.
That would be awesome. That movie where it's just like his special power is he can manipulate ham, so he just has to have ham around.
Here's a ball of bacon.
Yeah.
Like I'm down.
Yeah,
let's get
Andy
this going.
Staples loves that. All right, that's a good number 4. It's number 3.
Curling up in the fetal position and finding whatever channel on TV is showing The Big Lebowski, because there is always one.
Yes, that's a good one. Mine is just swearing.
That's pretty good too.
I can't do it like now because we are in a store.
We're live from a retail location.
Yeah, like I kind of have a sailor mouth when I'm not like talking for money.
Indeed, same here.
So
sometimes the crossover.
Like the lead up to this show was often a little bit salty, and then it was pointed out to me that there was a speaker, so it is no longer that salty. But now it's just kind of like, just random exhalations of swear words for no reason whatsoever, just being like swear word.
Yes.
So
good strategy.
Ace, you're number 2.
I cannot do the thing where I avoid all things Michigan and Ohio State heading into the game. I'm just not wired that way.
Sure.
I also, my job does
I mean, like this
lead
is
me to running
totally
into those
unsuccessful
things.
Like approach.
So one thing that I do that allows me to pass time, and I will now get another chance to do that tonight because I've moved over to the HTML5 version of GIFs as opposed to the old GIFs, is I will go through old Wolverine historian videos and just make GIFs of things. So especially from games that are from a long time ago, games that I might not be particularly familiar with. it's fun to kind of
that's actually a
do
good
the history thing. It can be productive, and then I have these things later to post in like long tweet blitzes or whatever.
Yeah.
So I might be going back through and watching some old Michigan-Ohio State games tonight, or combing through the HBO documentary to see if there are GIF-worthy things in there, which there always are.
Well, that's good and work-y, and I approve of that.
Yeah. No, sometimes I'm productive with my angst. It's rare, but sometimes it happens.
My number 2 is something called Game of Things, which is a stupid party board game.
Okay.
And the way this works is that there's a thing like things that you would be embarrassed by, or things that wouldn't make a good first impression, and everybody writes down the Game of Things. And at Thanksgiving, one of our traditions is that there's kind of this cousin cohort, and we do this at late at night.
Okay.
When people have been having beers.
Sure.
And it is just the ruthless bashing that Greg Dooley gave me on
yes.
It's just that.
We got the sense of familial ribbing.
Right. It's actually it often goes too far.
As these things are wont to do.
Yes, and the people not in the room are the people in the room
appalled.
Well, they're fair game, but then the people out of the room who can't even defend themselves.
Oh, well, that's rough.
It is rough. Also, I drew a swastika on the neck of one of my cousins last night. And then
you said that out loud.
And then I used that in one of the answers. And it was
God.
I told you and then one of my other cousins said that's not the way a swastika goes. And the next clue was things that wouldn't make a good first impression. And my answer was I know
statement.
the correct way to draw a swastika. So this occupied time, and
it sure did.
And during any of this time, I was not thinking about the impending doom on Saturday, or glory or doom. So that was very effective.
Sure.
Ace, you're number 1.
Normally it's drinking. Since I'm waking up so early tomorrow morning, it is thinking about what I will be drinking upon my return from Columbus.
I see.
I am eyeing a bottle of scotch that a very generous reader sent me, actually.
Why are you getting sent scotch?
Sent it by natural charm. I don't know. I'm more approachable.
You're not more approachable. You're a diva for one. You look like a hipster. You have a beard.
I'm not hearing anything that makes me sound less approachable here.
Well, you're at 0, so how would that differ? My number 1, and we're gonna have a talk about this, is carving the turkey.
I know that this is the thing, and it's a time-consuming thing. There's an art to it.
Well, it's not really about an art. You just kind of cut up the turkey. It's fine. But when you do carve the turkey, bits of the turkey fall off, and they fall off into the flavorful gravy, pre-gravy thing. And if you have salted the turkey appropriately, it becomes gloriously salty. And so as I carve the turkey, I just eat turkey.
That's a strong play.
And that's pretty much the only turkey I ever eat. By the time the meal is ready,
it's just the dry stuff that you don't want.
I'm just ugh. But I took over the turkey carving duties 2, 3, 4 years ago, and I successfully not laughed like a supervillain and screamed, "You fools!"
So the job is still yours for now,
right? Yeah, but
until somebody who's related to you hears this podcast,
it's coming. Well, that side of the family doesn't really pay attention.
Well, that's good.
Which is good.
It's a safe space.
A lot of that's very good for a lot of the reasons that we've just gone over.
Indeed.
But yeah, that took some time, and I was eating turkey, and at no point during the part where I was like, "Nah, it's gonna be good turkey," was I
thinking about
terrified about the game.
That's good.
So yeah.
Yeah.
This was definitely a too much information gimmicky top 5, but only on my part. You managed to keep it
unusually
clean.
for me, I did not unleash any state secrets.
Old shared nipples.
Well,
I mean, that's
out there
out
again
there,
now.
yeah.
So yeah, never escaping that.
All right, we got one more break. We're going to come back, and we're actually going to talk about dry heave OSU.
The places you'll go may seem far from Ann Arbor. From San Francisco to St. Louis to Shanghai. But as members of the Alumni Association, we're never far. Because Michigan is more than a place. It's a mindset that connects us. For those who leave Michigan, but for whom Michigan never leaves, this is where you belong. The Alumni Association of the University of Michigan. Join today at umalumni.com.
As Jim Harbaugh and the 2016 Michigan Wolverines begin their journey towards a 43rd Big Ten championship and 12th national title, it's important that you're also preparing for this historic season. If you find yourself on the wrong side of the law in Ann Arbor or around Metro Detroit, you want a Michigan man in the huddle. Call former prosecutor and now criminal defense attorney Jonathan Paul at 248-924-9458 or visit his website, michiganlawgrad.com.
Want the perfect game day outfit? Underground Printing has unique, great-fitting apparel and officially licensed apparel from legendary Michigan names like Woodson, Howard, Schembechler, Ufer, and more. UGP also specializes in custom-printed apparel and promotional items for groups, events, and businesses. Whether you need one shirt as a gift or 1,000 shirts for a charity walk, Underground can customize almost anything for groups large or small. To learn more, visit Underground Printing at one of our 3 convenient locations around Ann Arbor or online at undergroundshirts.com. If you need a place to stay in Ann Arbor and don't want to be stuck out by I-94, there's a new hotel downtown, and the owners, who should be well known to the Michigan community, have asked our help to get the word out. The Martin family, yes, that Martin family, recently opened the Residence Inn Ann Arbor downtown, just a block from Main Street and a short walk to Michigan Stadium. They're competitively priced and offer a free hot breakfast, free Wi-Fi, fully equipped kitchen in every suite, and an indoor pool. That's the Residence Inn Ann Arbor downtown.
The Wolverines are led by Jim Harbaugh, a devastating improviser. But only the tip of a varied attack. This team is dangerous from anywhere on the field at any time.
I wish I could swim like dolphins. Like dolphins can swim. Though nothing will keep us together. We can beat them forever and ever. Oh, we can be heroes. Just for
On the nose selection from Ace Ambender right there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I went through music pretty quickly today.
Sure. I mean, you gotta throw it out there. But Michigan plays Ohio State, dry heave times, on Saturday at noon as God himself intended. And if Michigan gets quarterback play, this is going to be a game.
Yes. And if they don't, it's going to be a long drive home.
So, the thing that kind of leapt out to me as far as the Ohio State offense goes is that they're not very explosive.
No, I mean, they've got Curtis Samuel, but their other receivers, Noah Brown is very much a possession guy. I mean, we kind of got an indication of that. Like, the incredible catches he made against Oklahoma were incredible because he was very well covered.
Yes.
So he's a guy who's, I expect them to be able to put Stribling on him, and he won't be a factor for much of the game because he won't have any separation.
Yeah, yes, that's also what I think.
And they have other guys who are all kind of in the just range. That KJ Hill kid has come on of late.
So he's only got 21 targets and he's got 11 catches in the last 3 games, but sample size issues. He's obviously their number 3 receiver now behind Samuel and Noah Brown, but not a guy who has seemed particularly devastating. He's caught some short passes and got some yards after catch. And then everybody else who's a target is terrible, or at least bad. Like
with the exception, I would say, of Dontre Wilson, who is kind of Curtis Samuel light, and that is the matchup that kind of worries me a little bit. Is that they don't just have the one, they have 2, and that means both Michigan safeties or maybe occasionally a linebacker. They might be able to catch somebody in a bad matchup because Michigan's going to be so focused on trying to slow down Samuel that Wilson is going to end up getting a favorable matchup, and he is a very similar player.
Yeah, so they've got those 2 spread H guys, and so you're going to see a lot of stuff kind of in and around the line of scrimmage. You don't see Ohio State being very efficient in Big Ten play. So if you leave out Maryland, if you leave out Rutgers, two of the worst defenses in America, and you look at J.T. Barrett's production, like he had one good game where he had 8 yards an attempt, and then it's like 6.5, like a couple games where it was like 4,
and
4
then
and a
the
half.
sub-3 that he put up against Michigan State.
And like weather has something to do with that.
Sure.
Weather has something to do with it, especially because J.T. Barrett struggles.
Yeah, I was
more
hoping
than
that the
most.
forecast for Saturday would be howling winds and rain and all that good stuff.
But either way, this is a really janky passing game, especially when you consider that they have a couple of really rough pass protection players, especially their right tackle Isaiah Prince.
Yes.
And with Taco Charlton going off, that's a matchup that I think Michigan should be winning all day. And the thing about Michigan's line is, okay, you can chip Taco Charlton, but then you're allowing someone else to get doubled. You're allowing Jabril Peppers to come in on a delayed blitz.
And they also have a true freshman playing guard who is going to have to, if you're paying extra attention to the edges.
Yep.
Michael Jordan blocking Ryan Glasgow or or Maurice Hurst one-on-one. I mean, in pass protection, that's a matchup that pretty significantly favors Michigan in both the run and pass game.
So if Michigan can get the Ohio State offense into passing downs, I think that's a huge advantage for them.
That's a big if, though.
Yeah, so getting them there is like, I mean, you look at the stats that S&P has, and it's just every short yardage thing that they have is incredible. Their line yards are incredible. Their power success rate is incredible. Their stuff rate is incredible. When Ohio State runs the ball,
They get yards.
They are like the second or third best team in the country at getting the first 5 yards.
Yeah.
And it kind of drops off after there, and part of that is because you've got a lot of guys near the line of scrimmage. But to get to that passing down, Michigan has to win on first down. They have to win on second down, and then get to the advantage part. And that's
something only a couple teams have been able to do to Ohio State all year.
Yeah, I mean, they've scuffled. Like, they scuffled a little bit.
They really struggled with Penn State.
They did. And that's a defensive line that didn't really leap out to any of us when we were looking at them.
No, they have come on
lines.
stronger a little bit over the second half of the season, but they're not the quality of Michigan's line.
No, and so, like, how does Ohio State get into third and short? How does Michigan keep them from getting into third and short? And I kind of, like, I've looked at both these teams, and it feels to me like you have to keep Peppers around the box, and you especially have to use him as the Barrett killer.
Yeah.
Like, you need him to get into Barrett and hit him hard repeatedly and keep him to 3 yards a carry instead of 5.
Because the difference with Ohio State is it's not that Mike Weber is dominant. It's not that they're handing off to Curtis Samuel and he's necessarily – I mean, he's a very good runner, but he's not even utilized that often as a runner, lining up in the backfield. But Barrett's ability to just grind out 5 yards almost no matter what.
Yeah, I can't tell you how many times this season I've been watching Ohio State, and I'm like, all right, that's a 2-yard gain, and it's a 5-yard gain. All right, that's a 3-yard loss, and it's a 4-yard gain.
He's like the Mike Hart of running quarterbacks.
Precisely. Down to the fact that he's not particularly explosive, but he's well more than enough to make the Ohio State offense go. So, I mean, for Michigan, it's about winning that matchup against Michael Jordan, like making that a blowout.
Yes.
Like getting him.
You want everybody to know who that guy is by the end of the game because he's getting whooped.
Because, Elfline's good and Price is good. Those are their other two interior linemen. I think Michigan is going to have some success against those guys because you have a Hurst, you have a Glasgow, and then it's about really exploiting that second matchup so that, Barrett's making guys miss in the backfield and getting 2 yards instead of getting 5. And I think that could happen.
Yeah, it's something that's not particularly difficult to envision, but I think the huge key is going to be not only getting that going, but then making sure you're not getting hit over the top, which is something that with Samuel, I worry about
Samuel,
a little bit.
Yeah. I mean, with passing downs, it's easy. You just put Lewis on Samuel, and then
yes. No, this is more Ohio State breaking tendency or pulling something out on an early down where they get a favorable matchup. I think that's the thing I'm most worried about.
The Samuel wheel route contested
yes,
by
a wheel route happens to be the exact thing I'm picturing
Yeah.
pretty much every time that this is playing through in my head.
Well, I mean, and then it's about Michigan trying to get to the quarterback and covering long enough and maybe pulling out some of the Don Brown stuff that might induce a throw that's a bad idea. But, I mean, I don't think they're going to get shut out, but
no.
How much edge stuff is there? If we seed them the edge stuff, can Michigan take that 20-yard hit, take that 30-yard hit, and then, get them in 3rd and long and get them off the field. And if they can do that, then that's going to look a lot like Northwestern or Penn State, where it's like Ohio State scuffles to 20-some points. Can Michigan do better than that? I think they can. I think this might be a game where Ohio State's offense just looks awful for most of it. They're going to get some plays, they're going to get some points, but I can see them like this turning into Michigan, Iowa, where it's just a scuffle on both sides of the ball.
Yeah, I'm having a hard time not seeing this coming down to a handful of plays where it's either a turnover or something close to it, or a near sack, and whether or not Barrett can escape from that. I feel like this is going to be a game we look back on where there are 1 or 2 plays where if you change them, it completely affects the outcome.
And I feel like they're all going to be Marcus Baugh.
You know, yeah, that would be the guy where you wouldn't expect him to do that.
Well,
and Ohio State's going to utilize their crazy talented but also crazy tight end in just the perfect way for this one game.
Yeah, I mean, if you haven't seen Marcus Baugh this year, imagine Carson Butler. Crazy athletic, also just crazy. Like he's got huge negatives in everything that
literally every category that you could grade a guy out in at tight end.
Yeah, he's terrible, but he also like catches balls downfield 20 yards.
There are times when you look at him and you go, "This is an NFL tight end."
Yeah, and he just leaps over a defensive back as like a 270-pound.
He's
player.
probably going to get drafted, even though he has had a totally nondescript college career.
Right? Yeah, he's just so if he like has that play where he stiff arms Jordan Lewis, leaps over Delano Hill, and then I don't know ends the soul of DeMonte Thomas, then that's a win for Ohio State.
Yes.
If Michigan manages to get a pick 6 or something like that, that could swing the game because it's going to have to be a tight game, I think, for Michigan to win it. I mean,
yeah, I don't think
low-scoring game.
Yeah, I don't think anyone's expecting a Michigan blowout here.
No.
And that's kind of the one thing that is off the table with the quarterback situation.
Yeah, because, I mean, let's flip sides of the ball now. Michigan's quarterback situation. We talked about this in the Dooley segment. We think Spate's going to play. We think O'Korn is also going to play. But it's going to be up to Spate's pain tolerance and ability to deal with whatever they're going to do to that shoulder.
And that's worrisome because Ohio State has some defensive linemen that are probably going to hit him at some point.
Yeah, so if you just look at sacks, this does not look like a defense that actually gets after the passer. And that is an incorrect impression.
It sure is.
So there's a reason that Ohio State has so many pick sixes this year, and it's because of their pass rush. So they're like 80th or 100th. There's something terrible in adjusted sack rate. But if you look at the Pro Football Focus numbers, they've got 4 pass rushers heavily in the green who have at least 18 hurries between them. And that's kind of the level that Michigan's line is on. So Michigan's pass rush, Ohio State's pass rush, fairly similar. There is a difference, and that is that most of their pass rush comes from defensive ends. Now, they have 4 defensive ends.
Yeah, and they have a sub-package where they play all 4 of them, and it's terrifying on passing downs.
So don't get into passing down. But Michigan might be able to just about hack it on standard downs because none of the defensive tackles they play are impact rushers.
No.
And honestly, Michigan's gotten pretty good pass protection from both tackles this year.
Yep.
Like Ben Braden's had a couple issues here and there. It hasn't looked anything like what we saw last year from Mason Cole, I don't think.
Yeah, no, he's been much better than I think any of us expected, to be honest.
And then Magnuson's pass protection has been a consistent positive. So it's you're going to want to chip. You're going to want to help out Ben Braden. You're going to want to probably leave an Asiasi or a Wheatley in or something like that. But I can see them getting enough protection, and then it's about attacking a couple of weak points in the Buckeye secondary. So their starting cornerbacks are both very excellent.
Yes.
And Malik Hooker has also had a terrific year. But their second starting safety, Damon Webb, has been a liability in coverage. And their nickelback, whoever it is a major step down. Now, they've got a couple of guys who rotate in, but...
Yeah, they've been flipping around Denzel Ward, Damon Arnett, Eric Smith, but it hasn't really... They haven't found something that they like there.
Yeah, and whenever Ross Fulton talks about... He does a lot of live game commentary. He's our favorite and most educated Ohio State analyst.
Yes.
With
the X's and O's, he is unbeatable.
He keeps talking about people going after Arnett. So he's obviously out there. He's obviously a guy who Michigan might be able to make some hay against. So who's that going to be, though? Is it going to be...
I mean, that's the question, because unless they are motioning around in ways where they are getting a matchup against Ohio State's third corner with one of their top 2 receivers, then you start looking at, is this a Grant Perry game? Is this the long-awaited Drake Harris breakout that may never happen?
Yeah, I mean, or is it like, are we putting Bud on the outside and putting Chesson in the slot? Because I could go for some of that.
You know, that would be fun to watch. Maybe we start to see some of Eddie McDoon's actual downfield receiving in this game because we know he's capable.
I mean, a major way that Michigan wins this game is that they have some receiver outside of the big 3 have a huge play.
Yes. Have
a 60-yard touchdown, a 70-yard touchdown, because Ohio State's weakest defensive players get a little exploited. And it could happen.
Yeah, McDoom or Crawford or Harris or Perry, and one of those guys could come through with something.
And you know, kind of the one thing that I thought O'Korn looked decent on was the deep ball that he threw to Darboh.
That was close.
Incomplete, fairly close, and with the wind, I felt like if it was a calm day that would have been on point. So maybe even if O'Korn is in there, if you're just taking those deep shots, like, fire away, man. It's not like YOLO.
Yep. Nothing to lose on this.
Remember
one.
YOLO?
I do.
As far as the run game goes, this is a very good run defense, but they've only played 2-man ball teams, and both Michigan State and Wisconsin have gone for 6 yards a carry.
Yeah, I mean, we were a little upset about Wisconsin's performance against them because they were screwing with Ohio State with shifts and formations that they had not seen that are similar to what Michigan does, and it was successful. So there's some hope. Ohio State had a lot to replace at defensive tackle this year, and while those guys have played well, they're not dominant. They don't have an Adolphus Washington in there.
Yeah.
So there is some hope that you can push some guys around a little bit, get some guys to jump into the wrong gap with the inevitable Harbaugh wrinkles.
Yeah. This could be a fullback trap kind of game,
and
which they haven't really run at all this year.
And then you also have, Raekwon McMillan is a great middle linebacker, but their outside linebackers, their hybrid space players, seem like they can get caught jumping inside on occasion. I know that was highlighted in the game preview with Jerome Baker. So there is some hope that either with the Peppers package or with one of those crack sweeps or something where Michigan breaks tendency and runs something out of a formation that they don't normally do, that you might actually be able to edge Ohio State a little bit and get a chunk play that way.
That was actually Seth's post. I didn't mention Jerome Baker at all.
Well,
but it's just it's a situation where, you know, this is a very good run defense. I feel like Michigan is going to throw the kitchen sink at them, and they look like the kind of defense that would be vulnerable to those kind of things.
Yes.
We've seen it against both of the man ball teams that they've gone up against. They are a spread team. You don't see a lot of 2 tight end sets from them and that kind of thing. So they don't rep it a lot in practice. They haven't seen very many teams like this so far this year. And you know that Jim Harbaugh has everything and the kitchen sink that he's going to throw at these guys.
Yeah, I keep thinking back to Michigan State's 2-play first drive where they ran 2 different, kind of kitchen sink misdirection plays at Ohio State, and they both worked, with the second one getting L.J. Scott open for a 61-yard screen pass touchdown. So I think that there is definitely some hope that even if the quarterback situation is far from ideal, that Harbaugh can scheme Michigan into at least a decent number of points.
Yeah, and given what we've seen from both the Wisconsin and the Michigan State offensive lines, it's not like those guys are much ahead of Michigan, if they are at all.
And neither of those teams had great quarterback situations themselves, I think it's safe to say.
Yes, I think that is definitely safe to say. And if you look at the end of that Michigan State game, that was 8 straight runs from L.J. Scott to not quite tie the game.
Yes.
So I do think that Michigan can ugly this game up and win it if they get a break, but I feel like they just need the one break. I predicted 18-13 Ohio State, largely because of quarterback uncertainty, but if they just get that one big play.
And man, does it ever feel like that the universe owes Michigan a break in an Ohio State game.
Well, they've killed our quarterback again, at least partially, and it's just like, how many times is this going to happen? It's ridiculous. But I have hope. I don't really have an expectation that Michigan will win,
No.
I guess is the way to put it.
If I had to bet money with no line, I would be picking Ohio State.
Well, I mean, the special teams
But
are
it's
also
close.
kind of interesting because we're talking about the big play that Michigan needs to get. Dontre Wilson has 4 muffed punts this year.
He does.
And, okay, they're probably going to replace him with Curtis Samuel.
He's got one, too.
He's got one, too, on just 7 attempts. So, that could be it. And if you're looking at their kicking, their kicker is 16 of 17 on the year. But he's only hit 3 from outside of 39 yards.
Yeah, I mean, this was the guy who Urban Meyer had not even heard of, basically, when their season started. So,
and if you look at his kickoff stats, he doesn't get many to the end zone at all. So this is going to be a situation where, man, Ohio State's going to find themselves in that no man's land, and they're going to have like a 4th and 2, and it's going to be strength on strength. And if Michigan can stop them up on a couple of those, then that path to victory gets a lot clearer.
yeah. And, I mean, we've seen Michigan, I mean, they have blocked a ton of kicks this year. Ohio State does have an Aussie rugby punter in Cameron Johnston, and Michigan does seem to have figured out something about how to block those or nearly block those.
Well, and part of the Penn State win was Penn State blocking a Johnston punt and getting a field goal out of that. So you can see a big special teams play for Michigan.
Oh, and Penn State blocked a field goal too. I mean, that is kind of fluky.
Yeah.
But Michigan's also blocked a couple field goals this year. So
yeah, but it hasn't been nearly as consistent as the punt
no,
block.
it hasn't.
So I'm not really banking on that.
Searching there, but you also got Jabril Peppers out there, and in the event that he can field a kick and return it.
But
Johnston's really good at preventing those, unfortunately.
So he has ceded 40 return yards all year on 10 attempts.
That's not many.
And he's got a great net. And Pro Football Focus thinks he's only a negative 13.8,
which is
brilliant
amazing.
Grade.
Yeah,
that's like an NFL All-Pro
at this
grade.
Point of the year. I mean, Johnston's probably going to be a Ray Guy finalist, and he might win the dang thing.
He's a negative 13.8.
Yep.
I'm just delighted by this.
It's beautiful.
Also, Durbin is negative 29.9 on kickoffs.
Yeah, that I can get a little bit more with
he's not good.
Over 50% return rate.
He's not good, but you're seeing the best cornerbacks in the country are plus 10.
Yes, and Cameron Johnston might very well be the best punter in the country, and he is at negative 14.
So I like it. I'm a fan. Yeah, it's good. I just love the.
And now that we've confirmed that there isn't some horrific backstory to this too,
there probably is.
I can feel more comfortable laughing.
Oh, yeah. I guess it would be sad if the guy who grades it was his parents were actually killed by a punter.
That would be a bit of a downer.
Yeah, I would feel bad if we found that out. I mean, sort of
by guessing it. You got Batman,
well,
you?
There's sufficient evidence.
There was. We let the evidence mount for a decent chunk of the season before putting that theory forth.
All right, feelings, thoughts. Dry heaving.
I'm nervous. I'm not. It's with these trips, it's always because road games are kind of a hassle, and this is a game where I would like to just sit there. I would like to, like you, wake up 1 minute before kickoff and see the game play out in front of me. That is not how it'll play out, but it'll be a cool atmosphere once I'm in there. And I do expect a close game. I do expect it to come down to a couple plays. Unfortunately, with the way the quarterback situation looks to be playing out, it is hard for me to predict that Michigan will be on the right side of those plays.
Yeah.
But I think Peppers is a guy who almost brings that back to even with his ability and Michigan throwing everything that they've possibly got at this game. I think there's a chance that we see him possibly even make kind of a Heisman push with this one.
I have said that if he wins this game single-handedly, he will win the Heisman. I don't know if he has the stats.
Yeah, Lamar Jackson's put up some numbers this year.
Yeah, but they've also lost kind of ignominiously to a couple of teams.
That's true, and there isn't really another standout candidate who
unless they're
comes
just
going
to give it to Alabama's running back because that's what they do. It's so stupid.
It is lame.
But I think that if he can score 2 touchdowns in this game, which is extremely unlikely, but if he can do that, if he can have a turnover, get a sack, that kind of thing, he can definitely win it. But I'm just more concerned about winning the freaking game.
Yes,
that's what I think.
That is the thing this weekend.
But it's the end of the season. We'll have maybe one more, maybe 2 more of these. We'll see what happens.
Yes.
I'd like to thank everybody for listening this year. This has been our first season doing this, and Maricia's been great. And I hope everybody has enjoyed it, whether it's live or as you come to the game or wake up the next morning on the podcast. Let us know your feedback. I know we've had a lot of requests for additional podcast content, and I hope this scratches the itch. And we'll definitely, we have a plan to do some of this for basketball. We'll see. We'd like to thank our sponsors, the Bow Store, Underground Printing, and Moe's, the Alumni Association of the University of Michigan, the Residence Inn Ann Arbor Downtown, Homeshire Lending, Deo Bookkeeping, I got it right this time,
Hey-o.
Michigan Law Grad, Defensive Driver Group, Ann Arbor Elder Law, and Peak Wealth Management.
Who's got it better than us? No!